Alex, let me get your for the record, your name and the spelling.
First name is Alex, last name is Shkop. S-H-K-O-P.
Shkop.
Yes.
Okay.
You did it.
And you are the owner.
I'm the dungeon master, yes.
The dungeon master.
I'm the owner, yes.
So let me ask you, how long have you been in business
7
here?
years.
7 years. And any particular reason why you decided, I mean, that you were going to open a gun store? Or?
That's my background.
It's
so,
your background?
yeah, it's,
Tell me a little bit about your background then. Because I know you were saying you were from Russia, right?
so
Ukraine.
Russian military, competition shooter, enjoying it as a hobby, so all of the above.
So you did competition shooting too, huh? Okay. And so,
Sucked, that's why I opened up the business.
yeah, you were. Okay, so the state of Florida and the state of Texas, two states, have just been exploding with gun sales and new sales. People that, you know, either a lot of people that are first-time gun owners. The numbers have gone, you know, through the roof. Have you been seeing a lot of that, first-time gun owners?
Yes, this wave was pretty much 99% first-time owners.
During
COVID.
during what period?
Since COVID started.
Since COVID started. And what do they, you know, what do they say to you when they come in? What's the reason? Is it just COVID?
Boy, someone please pick up. John, you're sitting right by the phone. Okay, sorry.
Never
You
stops running.
got to crack the whip. So what do they say to you? What's the reason why these people are coming in?
Well, people realize that law enforcement cannot be for everyone and save everyone at the same time. So when you have a global problem, most of the people basically become their own keepers. So it's just people were looking for the ways to make themselves feel better and to be able to defend themselves.
So you've seen an increased number of people coming in, first-time buyers,
First-time buyers.
and who are basically worried, concerned. They want to protect themselves?
Correct. Yeah. It's for self-preservation. People just looking for an ability to defend their family.
What do you ask them as far as when they come in here and they're saying, "Hey, I come in here and I say to you, hey, Alex, I've never owned a gun before. I need a gun. I want it to protect myself." What do you recommend for them? What do you tell them?
Training. We always ask with, have you ever tried anything before and what's your background? Have you shot before and stuff like that? So we beg and plead for people to take up classes.
And what do they say?
A very small percentage of it understands that they have to. The others, they watch too much TV. They think it's that easy.
So you have a lot of people that come in here and all they want to do is buy the gun, but they don't want the training that goes with it.
Correct. They assume that they know what they're doing. So we're trying to fight that trend right now. We're trying to convince people that training is very, very, very important.
That's dangerous. It's not just dangerous to somebody else, but it's dangerous to themselves if they don't know what they're doing.
Most of the people will never touch the gun again. They're just buying it as a pacifier.
Really?
So that's my personal opinion.
But you still try to convince them that, look.
I mean, I can't tell them not to buy, but at the same time, we beg and plead that they have to make the time and the funds and come back and train us, not us, anyone.
Yeah, because you still have to sell them the gun if they pass all the requirements, but you can't force them to take the training.
Correct. So many people come around and some go on a range with their friends and realize that it's not that straightforward. So we had some success on getting people back in and inquiring about training. So it's been working little by little, but we wish it was better numbers.
Well, do you have a percentage? Is it 10%, 15%? Is there a percentage of people that actually come in and take the training of the new people?
Hard to say. People kind of spread out, and we're not the only ones.
Well, they might not even take the training. They might buy it and take the training someplace else, right?
So we can't put a number.
Can't put a number on that. From what you see, do you see? Well, does it worry you that people don't get the training when they should? I mean, I know you were saying, well, a lot of them may not pick it up again, but
it's been going on forever, and I think the problem with that is partially we're relying on you guys as media, because we always talk about gun sales, we always talk about mass shootings, we always talk about something that but we need to talk about education, and if people would hear about it more, probably they would have a different outlook on it. So we're relying on you guys to help us as well.
What kind of a weapon do you suggest for a first-time buyer? When somebody comes in here and says, I've never had a gun before, I need a gun, and I just wanted to protect myself at home.
People gravitate towards like a smaller caliber pistols. That's kind of number one seller.
Particularly for people that aren't out target shooting or people that don't go hunting, right? I
Correct.
mean, they're going to be just protecting
Well,
themselves.
in all honesty, rifles are much easier to master and much easier to operate. So in terms of the friendliness of use, rifle wins. But pistols are more compact and easier to maneuver for the person that is not trained.
Right.
But rifles are actually easier and friendlier.
How much training does somebody need? Again, first-time buyer comes in, wants the gun, they buy one from you. How much training do you recommend that they take so that they're at least knowledgeable enough and proficient enough to handle a weapon properly?
It depends on the person's background, age, dexterity, how fast they can kind of accept the information. So it's very personal, but 3 to 5 hours at least of training will give you an understanding of safety at least. So the first goal is safety. We're not trying to get you in the G.I. Joe status. We're trying to get you safe and not to do self-harm or prevent accidents. So that's primary concern. So relatively normal person can pick up enough information between 3 and 5 hours to know enough to be dangerous.
And you have a class that you guys teach here too, firearm safety class, right?
It's a school. We're operating as a training facility, so that's all we do. Our range is 100% dedicated to training. We do not rent out range for recreational plinking. It's always instructor-led training. We're operating as a school.
And as a school, when you operate and you have people come in to take the class, what is that? Tell me about the class. What does it entail? How long is it?
One-on-one. So we're not milking it to make money. We're not putting 20 people in the class trying to collect as much as we can. It's always one-on-one. We're after quality, not after the dollar sign. So.
And you had said that to me when we talked, that your trainings are all individual,
correct,
one-on-one training.
Because that's where you learn the most, and that's where the instructor can cater to you, not to 20 different people of different ages, different backgrounds, different abilities. So.
You mentioned ages. When you see particularly these new people coming in, or anybody who's coming in, I noticed there were a couple of women that were in here earlier. Are you seeing more women come in to buy a weapon now than you did in the past, or not?
Yeah, and it's a common trend. There is more women in the workplace. There is more women in the C-level positions. There is more women in the household where they would be the breadwinner, and the husband would be making less money. So the women are becoming truly equal. So seeing them here is nothing surprising, because if we're equals, then it should be 50-50.
But with the concerns over society and the pandemic and all.
There's a lot of women that are now again, due to our social changes, they now feel that they can and will and able to own a firearm and defend themselves, and they enjoy training. We have a lot of student females that do it they already passed the point where they could have stopped and know enough to be dangerous. They're actually working on getting better and enjoying the results. So they are now looking past the first step. They enjoying that they becoming now a qualified shooter that can enjoy shooting and achieve results. So it's becoming a sport versus we passed the scare point. Mm-hmm. Now they're enjoying it as a sport.
What do you, as far as, is there a particular age group, or is it across the board?
It's across the board. All walks of life, all incomes, all ages. We're the most embracing business.
So you're seeing, is that a change over, you used to always think, well, in the old days, mm-hmm. It was primarily men would be coming in to buy firearms. It was,
right.
I mean, and perhaps there was a particular age group there that were buying guns. Mm-hmm. Has that all changed now too?
Well, if you kind of look back in history, so we were at one point where the kids would carry their 22 rifles to school and they had a class. Yeah. So it was a very common thing, and it was absolutely was like a physical education class. It was absolutely not anything special or big. Then the life changed and the outlooks changed. Um, so now I think we're going through another demographic shift. We had first the fear, but after the fear, a lot of people started enjoying it. We have a lot of families that found something in common now. So you have, for example, baseball. So you have father and a son, and they're baseball fans, and they discuss it and they have a conversation over dinner. We're kind of seeing the same trend here. People, it's a bonding experience. So you have husbands and wives, and you have kids, different generations, coming to the range, and that's gives them something in common. So out of fear, we have other positive things coming out of it. So now it's a recreational pastime for a family as a fun activity.
What is it about Florida that is driving, between Texas and Florida? Texas 1, Florida 2 for sales, for, people that are first-time buyers?
Well, I guess historically we were still the two states that were still, upkeeping the Second Amendment. So we have the resources, we have the places to go, we have the inventory, we have people with knowledge. So I think you would see it everywhere else. They just don't have the infrastructure. The infrastructure was disassembled.
Yeah, I mean, you have a heck of a big shop. Or something.
And I'm not alone. So
Right,
we
right.
just, for us, it's, people keep asking what's wrong with us crazy people. We're not crazy. It's if you play golf and you go to a golf store, we're a golf store. We just pick a different activity, but not all of it is driven by aggression. This is a fun thing to do.
But it seems like a lot of it right now is being driven by fear.
Fear usually is the first catalyst that creates motion in many things. Like when you have pandemic, all of a sudden you have new developments in medicine and stuff like that. So fear creates a lot of bad, but a lot of good. So things the same here. We had first fear, and the wave created a lot of demand. But then demand creates a lot of positive things. It's education and family activity, and I'm thrilled about the education. More people talk about it, and more people look at it as okay, it exists. Why don't we learn about it? So I'm thrilled that the fear is actually going to bring some of the good things.
So you don't have a concern that the arming of Florida or Texas or the U.S. is out of control? It's...
So if we can fix one flaw that I kind of think exists is the people with mental illness, then I don't see any problem, because most of the normal and sound mind people, you want them to own the firearm because they will prevent other crimes and other stupidity, and you'll think 3 times if you want to go to a particular neighborhood and rob them because you know there's going to be a big dog or a big gun. So
or both.
Or both. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing if we can figure out the mental illness aspect, because most of the bad things that happens with firearms, I usually have a mental illness aspect behind it. So that's my personal take on it.
Have you had trouble getting? I know there was this ammunition shortage. Does that
It's
still
here,
exist?
yeah, there's no ammunition.
Really?
Yeah.
You get any in? Are you able to get some or nothing?
Right now, practically not. We're kind of working on the resources we had before.
How long has it been since you've been able to get? How often?
Again, COVID created this whole new system of having nothing.
How is it just because the manufacturers aren't manufacturing it? Is that, or is it because people just bought everything up?
I think it's a perfect
both.
storm. So a lot of the raw materials were coming in from overseas, particularly China also was supply of raw materials. So that broke down the supply chain. So that was problem number 1. Problem number 2, you had people with COVID, so you can't bring people to work in the normal quantities. Most of the factories have machinery that's been designed, bolted to the floor with electrical and piping in the floor, so they can't move the machines around. So the production levels went down because they have to kind of adhere to the new 6 feet codes and stuff. So production levels are down, demand is high, no raw materials. So it's a perfect storm.
What do the distributors tell you about it? They just shake their heads and their hands and say, well, I don't know when we're going to get you stuff.
Pretty much. Yeah, we have no, we don't know. I don't think anybody does.
The overall, Is there anything that, in what you've been seeing in the last 6 months or so, that gives you pause or concern?
Concern would be that it's going to polarize people more. So you're going to have always the opposite side saying, "Well, look at you crazy people, arming yourselves." So I'm hoping that it's not going to create a bigger divide. And again, that's where we rely on you guys by hopefully bringing the information where we can talk, discuss, and kind of meet the both sides. But here's the funny part. So yesterday or the day before yesterday, I had a person with a car with a Biden flag, with a Biden T-shirt, buying a gun. So we had a lot of Democrats, people that openly admitted that they would never ever think of owning a firearm, but here they are. So as usual, stress and uncertainty unites us. So I'm hoping that this will be a bridge where people can start understanding both sides. So people having guns is not a concern. Wrong people having guns, and that's the only thing.
But so even the pandemic, but even the election has spurred a reaction in people to
Pandemic was significantly more than
the election.
Than the election.
That was the big one,
Yeah.
and still
That
is,
was
I
interesting
imagine.
to watch because it was not a politically driven thing. It was the pandemic drove it was the my house, my fear, not about the government taking guns away. That's usually the theme of other elections.
Yeah.
This was not the theme of this time around. It was me, need to defend myself.
And a lot of that has to do, to some, maybe not so much here in Florida or even in Texas, but in some of the stories, the defunding of police departments had people worried.
Which is ludicrous, which is absolutely counterproductive. So we again, we work with law enforcement. I'm a law enforcement supplier, so I think we have a huge problem with if you would bring up your kids properly, then you wouldn't have all this police use of force. Like when every time I watch a video and they blaming a police officer for using force when they forgot the first 5 minutes when the person was yelling, screaming, kicking, or running away. Why would you want to do that? Stay in place, talk, and there's no violence going to be happening. So I disagree with that concept as we're missing out on our kids. We're not bringing them up properly. And cops are just people. So if you put them, violence creates violence. So if you start yelling and screaming, you get that back. So.
A couple of last questions for you. What do you, are there people that come in here that you say, you really probably shouldn't own a gun?
So as a firearm dealer, I'm protected. I can deny a sale to anybody for any reason. So it does happen. It does happen.
And so it's happened, huh?
We do turn people away. Yeah, we're not trying to sell anything to anybody. So if we have an uneasy feeling in my hair, on my neck standing up, that person is not buying a gun.
That's a good thing.
It's a good thing, but it's still an arbitrary thing. I'm relying on my own gut to do that, which is good, but.
But you're right. It's arbitrary.
Yeah.
David, anything you can think of? I can't.
You said you don't know when the ammunition shortage is going to end. How much of a problem does that create for law enforcement, the ammunition shortage? Keep looking at it.
Law enforcement can probably solve that issue because, I mean, we still have enough resources within the country to supply, and they have enough reserves.
Yeah.
So I don't think law enforcement will be affected as much, and the military will not be affected as much. They can always purchase, let's say the worst case scenario, there's always an overseas purchase. So it's the retail market that's going to be hunting market, retail market, competition market. Competitors should do a lot, like a lot. It's an expensive sport, so competition should a lot to keep their skill level high. So that's where it's going to hit the most.
What about the people defending their homes or if you're buying a gun for that? Does the ammunition shortage affect them?
For home defense, you need very little.
Yeah.
Problem is, it's training. So when you're buying a gun and you've never shot before, we want you to train. That will require ammo. So we need ammo.
Good.
Yeah, and one more time about the politics of it. You said you see Democrats and Republicans in guns.
This wave
Yeah, the
was
story
100
you were saying, yeah.
Yeah, this wave was absolutely 100% all inclusive. Every color, every income level, anything under the sun, everybody who walks around on the street was here. So all the party denominations. It was based on personal fear, not on political beliefs.
How much is the violence that they're seeing on TV in other cities where there are police shootings and there are protests and there they are the Antifa folks? How much of that plays into the fear of what you're seeing?
So I think that's the fear that drives current sales. So they're not politically driven. They are driven to the fact with all we hear on TV and in the news media that there's going to be more civil unrest and people are knowing what happened before and people lost their businesses and livelihoods. So that creates another wave of right now uncertainty. So again, it's not really politically driven. It's driven fear and uncertainty.
But you were saying about you want the Democrat story again? Is that what you wanted?
Yeah.
About the guy that was in here the other day.
We had a lot of people that were absolutely opposed to buying guns, owning guns, buying guns, owning guns, and openly admitting to it. So we had a lot of people crossing lines.
But the thing about that, can you mention the political parties?
The one guy, just tell us that one story again that you told me about, because this
Well-
camera was about the guy that had the sticker on his car.
So I mean, we had people with Biden T-shirts and Biden cars and flags and stuff coming and purchasing, and we're making comments and making fun of it. But at the same time, we know that the Democratic Party is an anti-firearms party, but here they are purchasing and buying. So.
That tells you something, though.
Well, yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It was all inclusive.